General Hospital spoilers reveal that Emma's revelation hit Brennan with a force he hadn't expected. A sharp crack in the forehead, he thought he understood about Anna Devane's so-called disappearance. It wasn't just the information itself that unsettled him, it was the way Emma delivered it. The trembling uncertainty in her voice, the urgency in her eyes, and the kind of fear that only surfaces when someone senses that the adults around them are lying. Emma had come to Brennan seeking clarity, but instead she brought a storm that shook every assumption he'd made about Anna's alleged WSB mission. When she confessed that Anna hadn't contacted her directly since Halloween, that all she had received were scattered impersonal signs of voicemail from a blocked number, a photo with no metadata, a message that didn't sound like Anna's real cadence, Brennan felt a chill form in his spine. It wasn't a chill of fear exactly, but one of recognition, of suspicion, of the dawning realization that something deeply wrong was happening behind the scenes. Emma hadn't intended to spark an investigation with her honesty, but that was exactly what she did. The more she spoke, the faster Brennan's mind began to rearrange the pieces of the story that had never quite fit. Anna on a mission, unreachable but safe. Anna leaving no trace except a conveniently timed message. Anna disappearing without any direct orders he could verify. He blamed himself for not questioning it earlier. But the truth was simple, he had wanted to believe it. He had wanted to believe the easiest version of the story, because the alternative meant acknowledging that someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to hide Anna from everyone, including him. And Brennan knew the WSB well enough to recognize when smoke was being blown into his face. Emma's information became the missing spark that ignited the fuse of his suspicion, pushing him to look beyond the tidy narrative he had been fed. As the shock settled, Brennan felt something else rise to the surface, a cold, methodical kind of anger. The kind that comes from realizing someone thinks they can outmaneuver you. If someone impersonated Anna, if someone manipulated Emma's trust, then that someone had studied Anna's life closely enough to imitate her, to fool even those closest to her, to mimic her voice convincingly enough to pass for real. But they hadn't accounted for Emma's intuition, nor for the way Brennan's mind worked once doubt had taken root. As soon as Emma left his office, the weight of her confession tightening like a noose around his thoughts, Brennan began retracing every detail of Anna's alleged mission. He pulled up WSB protocols, double-checked deployment logs, combed through communication files, and contacted every channel that could theoretically confirm her assignment. The deeper he dug, the more gaps he found, gaps too jagged to be coincidence. There was no mission, no record, no assignment order, no chain of command. Anna's name had been wiped clean from every database, as though she had vanished not into secrecy but into deliberate erasure. That realization changed everything. It wasn't just a lie, it was a construction, a carefully engineered cover that required resources, timing, and insider knowledge. Brennan's pulse began to pound as he pieced together the pattern: a blocked number, a conveniently delivered photo, a message that sounded just real enough to be accepted by a child, and a haze of misinformation surrounding Anna's last known movements. Someone had created that illusion. Someone who wanted Anna's loved ones to believe she was inaccessible, away, busy, alive. Someone who had something to gain by keeping Anna hidden in plain sight. And in Brennan's world, there were only a handful of people capable of orchestrating something like that. Jen Sidwell was high on the list. The more Brennan thought about Sidwell, the more every instinct in him screamed that he was involved. Sidwell had always operated with a ruthlessness that extended beyond the usual moral gray zones of the WSB. He wasn't afraid of manipulation. He wasn't afraid of deception. And he certainly wasn't afraid of taking prisoners if it served his agenda. Brennan knew Sidwell's obsessions, his fixation on Faison's unfinished work, his hunger for power disguised beneath bureaucratic language, his pattern of tying up loose ends with calculated cruelty. If Anna had gotten too close to whatever Sidwell was hiding, he wouldn't hesitate to neutralize her. And if Sidwell wanted to keep Anna's disappearance invisible, he wouldn't leave fingerprints behind. He would leave just enough noise to drown out the silence. Brennan's suspicion hardened into something sharper as he analyzed each clue. Emma had unintentionally delivered. A photo from a blocked number was a classic misdirection tactic meant to pacify, not reassure. A delayed voicemail, sent days after the last real communication, screamed of AI manipulation. The WSB had been experimenting with advanced mimicry systems. Sidwell had access. Brennan clenched his jaw as he replayed the message Anna had sent him. At the time, he chalked up the odd cadence to mission stress. Now, those slight delays, those artificial tonal shifts, sounded like a machine learning model trained to fool him. Someone had used technology to impersonate Anna. Someone had stolen her voice. Someone had tried to deceive Anna's granddaughter with the same cold precision. It was personal. It was calculated. And it was cruel. Brennan felt an obsession beginning to take hold, an insistent pulse growing louder in his mind. He needed to find Anna before it was too late. He needed to unravel Sidwell's operation. He needed answers that the WSB clearly wasn't going to give him. And above all, he needed to protect Emma from the truth, until he could understand the full scope of the danger. Brennan reached out to his contacts, keeping his inquiries discreet enough not to alert the wrong people. But with every call placed, every file pulled, every shadow he chased, he felt the invisible pressure of someone trying to stay ahead of him. Whoever had Anna didn't just want her hidden, they wanted her silenced. Permanently. And Emma's attempt to reach out had disrupted that plan more than the kidnappers anticipated. Emma had unknowingly become a threat, simply by asking the right questions, sensing the wrongness, refusing to accept a lie that adults might have swallowed. Brennan realized with growing horror that Emma might become a target herself. If Sidwell suspected she was uncovering too much, he needed to move faster. He needed to stay ahead. And he needed to outmaneuver a man who had already shown he was willing to abduct Anna. What frightened Brennan most wasn't Sidwell, it was the possibility that there were others involved. A network. A covert operation. A hidden faction of the WSB working off the books. If they were capable of kidnapping a veteran agent, falsifying her mission, and fabricating digital evidence to support their cover story, then Anna was in far more danger than anyone realized. Emma's small, trembling voice replayed in the back of his mind. I just want to talk to her. Why won't she pick up? Brennan had no answer then. But now he understood the terrifying truth. Anna hadn't picked up because she couldn't. She hadn't responded because she wasn't allowed to. She wasn't unreachable, she was trapped. Isolated. Controlled. Brennan's obsession deepened as he connected the final pieces. Someone had manipulated WSB records to hide Anna. Someone had used AI to replicate her communications. Someone had fed Emma a lie and hoped she wouldn't question it. Someone had taken Anna to a place where no one would think to look. Brennan knew Sidwell's patterns. Sidwell favored isolation. Sidwell favored misdirection. Sidwell favored locations that held symbolic significance. Spoon Island fit all three. It was remote, difficult to escape, and steeped in the kind of darkness Sidwell liked to exploit. As the truth solidified in Brennan's mind, a new determination filled him, a cold, unwavering promise. He was going to find Anna. He was going to expose Sidwell. And he was going to burn down whatever part of the WSB had dared to betray one of their own. Emma had come to Brennan with fear in her voice. But she had unknowingly armed him with the most powerful weapon of all, clarity. Her concern ripped away the illusion. Her intuition exposed the lie. And now, because of her, Brennan could finally see the truth. Anna wasn't on a mission. Anna wasn't safe. Anna wasn't free. And Brennan was no longer willing to accept the silence surrounding her disappearance. The obsession took root. The investigation began. And somewhere on Spoon Island, Anna Devane was running out of time. Brennan felt the shift becoming almost physical. An invisible tightening in the atmosphere around him. Like the air itself was warning him that the truth he had ignored for too long was finally clawing its way toward the surface. It started subtly, Emma's trembling voice, the urgency in her eyes, the fragile cracks in the story she believed, cracks that someone had tried desperately to seal. But now those cracks were widening, splitting open just enough for Brennan to glimpse the rotting machinery beneath. The lies presented as protocol, the silence masked as operational necessity, the artificial calm carefully crafted to keep him from digging deeper. And now, as he reviewed every detail Emma had given him, as he scrutinized every piece of information the WSB had conveniently offered without explanation, Brennan felt suspicion transform into conviction. Sidwell wasn't just adjacent to the situation, he was embedded in it. Sidwell was manipulating something. Sidwell might very well be the man who orchestrated Anna Devane's disappearance. The more Brennan replayed the sequence of events surrounding Anna's mission, the more Sidwell's invisible fingerprints appeared not physical, but psychological, strategic, unmistakably his. Sidwell was a master of misinformation. He thrived in ambiguity, using misdirection as both weapon and shield. He had built a career on controlling narratives and bending people's perceptions, until they unknowingly participated in his schemes. If someone wanted to make Anna Devane vanish while convincing the world she was safe and unreachable, Sidwell was one of the very few who possessed the skill, audacity, and ruthlessness to pull it off flawlessly. Brennan's instincts, those razor-sharp instincts, honed through decades of covert operations, were no longer subtle warnings. They were roaring signals. This wasn't a disappearance. This was an abduction meticulously disguised as routine protocol. And Sidwell was the kind of man who could fabricate an entire mission, orchestrate digital traces, and smirk through every lie as long as it kept him in control. That realization didn't ignite impulsive anger inside Brennan. Instead, it triggered something far more dangerous, a cold, deliberate intensity that sharpened his thinking and steadied his heartbeat. He needed answers, not guesses, not vague assurances, not WSB excuses. He needed the truth, and Sidwell was going to provide it whether he wanted to or not. Brennan began pushing through the bureaucratic smokescreen immediately, demanding clarification from WSB command, forcing supervisors to confront discrepancies they had deliberately ignored. He didn't accept half answers or protocol-based deflections. He cross-referenced assignment codes from every angle, pulled encrypted operation logs, reviewed mission dispatches that no one expected him to check, and spoke directly to agents who had been told to keep their mouths shut. Every layer he uncovered revealed the same chilling pattern. Falsified data inserted with surgical precision, official records that contradicted themselves, and mission documents supposedly authorized by people who weren't even in the country at the time. Someone had built an entire false narrative around Anna's whereabouts, and the deeper Brennan dug, the more obvious it became that Sidwell, or someone under Sidwell's command, was controlling the deception. Brennan knew enough about the WSB's internal structure to understand that only someone with significant access and motive could engineer such a seamless lie. Sidwell had both. Yet Brennan also recognized that confronting Sidwell now would be a mistake. Sidwell never reacted without preparation. If Brennan gave away the fact that he was onto him, Sidwell would tighten the trap, eliminate trails, destroy evidence, and possibly even eliminate Anna if she was still alive. Brennan had to move silently, strategically, turning himself into the kind of hunter who leaves no footprints. So he shifted into covert investigation mode, assembling evidence quietly while pretending to accept the narrative. He interviewed agents who were nervous but loyal, watched internal surveillance footage in slow motion, used backdoor channels to verify encrypted signals, and traced the digital fingerprints of each blocked message Emma received. The conclusion became undeniable. Anna wasn't missing because she was busy or unreachable. She was missing because someone had taken her, someone intelligent, someone with resources, and someone willing to deceive an entire intelligence community. And with every passing hour, the probability increased that Sidwell was behind it. But Brennan knew Sidwell would not be caught off guard. Sidwell anticipated threats before they formed, and Brennan's suspicion alone was enough to trigger Sidwell's defensive maneuvers. Sure enough, misdirection arrived almost instantly. The kind of sophisticated diversionary tactics only someone like Sidwell could deploy. Anonymous tips sent Brennan across city lines. Fake coordinates led him to abandoned warehouses and locked government buildings. A supposed sighting of Anna in Canada forced him to waste hours verifying an illusion. A trail in Brussels complete with timestamps and falsified security footage sent him chasing ghosts across continents. The final insult came in the form of a seemingly authentic video clip showing Anna speaking. But the moment Brennan studied her expression frame by frame, he knew it wasn't real. Someone had used advanced AI, replicating her tone, her mannerisms, her eyes with uncanny precision. But to Brennan, who knew Anna too well, it wasn't Anna. It was a performance, a trap. Sidwell's trap. Brennan's blood turned to ice. Sidwell wasn't just hiding Anna. Sidwell was toying with him, testing him, challenging him, and Brennan felt the invisible war between them intensifying every day. A battle neither had acknowledged aloud, but both understood too clearly. Brennan was hunting the truth. Sidwell was hunting the opportunity to stay ahead. Their silent conflict became an escalating chess match, each move sharper, colder, more calculated than the last. Sidwell's responses grew tighter and more defensive. Brennan's questions became surgical, slicing through layers Sidwell hadn't expected him to penetrate. Every exchange, every phone call, every meeting, every subtle glance carried the charge of two predators circling the same piece of prey. And still, through all the misdirection and psychological warfare, Brennan felt one truth anchoring him: Anna Devane was alive. He felt it the way a tracker feels his target breathing through the trees, unseen but undeniable. If she had been killed, the lies would have stopped. The diversions would have ended. Sidwell wouldn't bother maintaining the illusion. The ongoing misdirection was proof that Anna was still trapped somewhere, and that Sidwell still needed her alive. That thought fueled Brennan's determination. Anna wasn't someone he would allow to be forgotten, silenced, or erased. Anna had fought too many battles, survived too many enemies, uncovered too many secrets to meet her end at the hands of a bureaucratic manipulator like Sidwell. Brennan wasn't going to lose her. He wasn't going to let Sidwell bury the truth. And he certainly wasn't going to play the obedient pawn Sidwell was counting on him to be. The tension between them now pulsed like a ticking bomb beneath the WSB's polished floors. Sidwell was running out of room to maneuver. Brennan was closing in. The hunt wasn't just underway, it was entering a phase Sidwell never anticipated. Brennan was no longer searching. He was stalking. Sidwell had nowhere left to hide. And Anna, wherever she was, had just gained the most relentless ally she could hope for. Brennan had always believed that rescuing Anna would be the moment. Everything finally snapped back into place, a clean restoration of order after weeks of chaos. But the reality felt nothing like that. Instead of relief, he felt a violent tightening beneath his ribs, a slow-building dread that grew sharper each minute. Because even as he led Anna out of the darkness of Spoon Island, he understood that the true danger was only beginning. Anna was alive but hollowed by captivity, her strength bruised, her voice thin but still unbroken. And yet the moment he whispered Emma's name, she went rigid, her breath catching in a way that told Brennan she knew the truth before he even said it. Sidwell would retaliate. Sidwell would strike hard. And Sidwell would choose Emma. For a man like Sidwell, defeat was an intolerable humiliation, and humiliation demanded punishment. Brennan replayed every detail in his mind: the fake mission logs, the AI-generated voicemail, the doctored photo, the blocked number that delivered just enough hope to keep Emma from panicking. And the pattern became painfully clear. The deception had never been designed merely to hide Anna. It had been constructed to manipulate Emma, to keep her fragile, distracted, emotionally exposed. Emma was never just an obstacle. She was part of the plan. And now, freed from the burden of imprisoning Anna, Sidwell would shift his focus onto the person most vulnerable to emotional devastation. Emma's unintentional confession to Brennan, her fear, her intuition, her ability to sense when something was wrong had pierced Sidwell's carefully crafted illusion. That made her a threat, and Sidwell destroyed threats. Brennan felt the panic crawling up his spine, cold and relentless, because Emma was young, hurting, desperate for the reassurance her grandmother had been unable to give her. And that desperation made her easy to manipulate. Her emotional wounds were still bleeding from weeks of silence, and Sidwell, with his predator's understanding of human frailty, would see that as an invitation. Anna, despite her exhaustion, understood it too. She tried to rise from the seat in the boat that ferried them from Spoon Island to the mainland. Her voice rough as she insisted they go straight to Emma. But her body collapsed back against the railing, unable to carry the weight of the terror she felt. Brennan caught her, but the tremor in her hands told him everything he needed to know. Anna Devane, who had survived years of espionage, torture, betrayal, and loss, was terrified not for herself, but for the one person she could not protect with training or code words or a weapon. The thought of Sidwell turning his attention toward Emma felt like a knife twisting deeper. With each step Brennan took, he tried to keep his expression steady, tried to reassure Anna that they would reach Emma in time. But the words felt dangerously thin, as fragile as glass stretched afar. Because deep down, Brennan knew the truth: Sidwell moved faster than fear, and he would already be in motion. Sidwell, watching the collapse of his plan, did not rage. He did not panic. He recalibrated. The moment he realized Anna had been extracted, he shifted seamlessly into retaliation mode. His mind did not work in impulses, it worked in strategies. Emma was emotional, isolated, and easy to corner. Perfect leverage. Perfect prey. His hatred for Anna had always been rooted in her refusal to break, her refusal to fold even when stripped of power. And the idea of using Emma as a weapon against her filled him with a precise kind of vindictive satisfaction that made him almost unstoppable. As Brennan raced through the corridors of the mainland hospital with Anna, barking orders to the staff, demanding immediate protection for Emma's known locations, he could feel Sidwell's shadow stretching across the entire city like a stain. Every second he wasted was a second Sidwell gained. Every breath he took felt like time slipping away. Brennan could not shake the image of Emma walking to school alone, sitting at the coffee shop with friends, or returning home in the late afternoon. Any one of those places could become the setting of Sidwell's revenge. He imagined Emma hearing footsteps behind her. He imagined her answering a phone call from a blocked number. He imagined her being lured by some false message crafted to look like it came from Anna. Sidwell was a master of manipulation, and Emma was already primed to believe lies if they offered the slightest hint of emotional closure. Brennan's thoughts spiraled harder when Anna, voice shaking, whispered that Emma had been having nightmares in the weeks before the disappearance, waking up breathless, sensing something watching her even when she couldn't explain why. Emma had been aware on an instinctual level long before anyone else, and Sidwell hated instincts. Those who sensed his presence too early always became his first target. Brennan stormed out of Anna's hospital room the moment she was stable enough to speak, dialing security teams, demanding police surveillance, ordering WSB data pulls and cross-referencing communications from the past 72 hours. Every operative he reached told him the same chilling truth: Sidwell was gone. Not hiding. Not silent. Gone. Off the grid in a way that only someone who had prepared this exit weeks in advance could achieve. Which meant Sidwell had anticipated losing Anna. Which meant he had planned his retaliation for Emma before Brennan even realized the rescue was possible. Brennan felt the air around him thicken, felt the pressure behind his ribs harden into an obsession raw, enough to burn through every ounce of logic left in him. He had underestimated Sidwell once. He would not do it again. But as he rushed toward Emma's last known location, he sensed before he had proof that Sidwell was already there. And Emma, caught between grief and hope, would not see the danger until it was too late. She would answer the message. She would trust the voice. She would follow the illusion. Because she was desperate for Anna, desperate for closure. Desperate to silence the questions that had been chewing holes in her heart since Halloween. Sidwell knew that desperation better than anyone. Brennan could feel himself breaking into a sprint, his lungs burning, ignoring everyone calling his name, because he could almost hear Sidwell whispering to Emma, almost feel the trap closing around her, almost see the moment the darkness swallowed her whole. The fear that surged through him was unlike anything he had felt when rescuing Anna. Saving Anna had been a mission. Saving Emma was something else entirely. It was personal. It was visceral. It was consuming. And as Brennan reached the street where Emma had last been seen, a cold gust of wind cut through him like a blade because the silence that hung in the air was wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. Too late. Sidwell had made his move. And Brennan, standing in the center of that unnatural stillness, knew with terrifying certainty that the war he thought he had ended had only just begun.